It was nearly 10:30, a desolate road on the outskirts of the city. A thin fog had begun to settle, blurring the glow of the overhead streetlights into hazy orbs. Near a dumpster, a shadow lay slumped. At first, people ignored it. Just another drunk sleeping it off, they thought. But when a rickshaw puller finally leaned in, he saw the truth. The body was cold. The eyes were fixed. The lips a bruised shade of blue. A young man, 25 maybe, wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans. No ID, no phone, no name. Just a nameless soul with an ancient silver chain around his neck. John Doe, the officer muttered. The body was hauled away to the morgue. The morgue is always freezing. White tiles, the faint sting of formalin in the air, and a silence so heavy it rings in your ears. Tonight, Doom was on duty. Real name, Dulal Mia. 40 years old, 18 of them spent among the dead. He was an assistant, but his blade was sharper and his hands steadier than most surgeons. Dr. Shamim, the city's top forensic expert, was supposed to perform the autopsy, but the hour was late and the doctor was nowhere to be found. "What's taking so long to cut this one?" Doom grumbled to himself, lighting a cigarette. 11:40 p.m. His patience snapped. "I've seen 1,000 of these. I don't need a doctor to start." He snapped on his gloves. He picked up the scalpel. The young man's body lay motionless on the steel table. Doom knew he was breaking the rules, but greed is a powerful drug. As the blade sank into the flesh, the air in the morgue grew thick, suffocating. Far off, the compressor of a freezer began to rattle violently. Doom didn't stop. He opened the chest. His experienced eyes saw it immediately. This wasn't a natural death. There were strange, dark markings on the heart. But before he could investigate, his eyes drifted to the neck, the silver chain. "Should have taken this off first," he muttered. He yanked the chain. Hidden inside was a small, deep blue stone. It was translucent, glowing with an eerie internal light. Something this valuable on a John Doe? He looked around, empty, just him and the corpse. His heart began to hammer against his ribs. Who's going to know? His fingers trembled as he pried the stone loose and slipped it into his pocket. He draped the empty chain back over the cold neck. A loud door creaked. The door swung open. Dr. Shamim walked in. The doctor finished his preliminary check and left, promising to finalize the report tomorrow. Doom was alone again, but the stone in his pocket, it felt hot, burning. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted. Not just the AC, this was a bone-deep supernatural chill. Doom began to shiver. Then, a sound. A man's voice, crying, coming from everywhere and nowhere. "Give it back. Give me back my stone." Doom dropped his scalpel. He shouted in fear, "Who's there? Show yourself!" No answer. Suddenly, snap! Every light in the morgue died. Total darkness. Only the emergency red light flickered on. In that blood-red glow, the corpse's eyes seemed half open. Its blue lips were moving. "Give it back." Seconds later, the power surged. The lights buzzed back on. The body was still. The room was silent. Doom took a ragged breath. "Just a hallucination. My mind is playing tricks." He pulled the blue stone from his pocket. It was brighter now, pulsing. For a split second, he saw something moving inside the stone, a tiny dark silhouette spinning in the blue depths.
He didn't care. Fear was losing to greed. Whatever happens, this stays with me. He finished his work, locked the morgue, and stepped out into the black night. He didn't know it yet, but he hadn't just stolen a jewel. He had just opened the most terrifying chapter of his life.
It was nearly 1 a.m. Dhaka had finally surrendered to the silence. Doom stepped off the rickshaw and stood before his apartment, a crumbling 3-story building swallowed by the shadows. His hand was deep in his pocket. The blue stone was still there, but something was wrong. Ever since he left the morgue, he felt followed. He turned around twice, 3 times, nothing but the empty street, yet the feeling crawled up his spine like a spider. He unlocked the door to his tiny flat. 1 room, a cramped kitchen, a bathroom. He flipped the switch, but as the light flickered on, he froze. The air was frigid. It cold as the morgue. "I'm overthinking this," he muttered, tossing his shirt onto a chair. He pulled the blue stone out and set it on the table. Under the bulb, the stone didn't just shine, it pulsed like it was breathing. Then he heard it, in a faint, ghostly whisper. "Give it back." Doom jumped. He scanned the empty room. Am I going crazy? He turned the TV on, cranking the volume to drown out the silence. But even over the blaring noise, the voice cut through like a razor, in louder whisper. "Give it back." He splashed cold water on his face in the bathroom, trying to wake up from this nightmare. He looked into the mirror above the basin, and his heart stopped. Standing right behind him was a figure. A bluish face, sunken, hollow eyes, pale, bloodless lips. It was him, the John Doe from the morgue. Doom spun around. The room was empty. He looked back at the mirror. Nothing. Panting. A hallucination. It's all just a hallucination. A loud pop. The light broke into darkness. In the pitch black, a voice spoke right into his ear. "Why did you take it?" Doom screamed. The light flickered back on. The room was empty, but something was lying on the basin. The silver chain, the same one he had left in the morgue, but the center was empty. The stone was gone. He ran back to the room. The table was empty. The stone had vanished. Panic set in. He tore the room apart, under the bed, in the drawers, the kitchen. A smell of smoke. He rushed to the sink. The stove was off, but sitting on a steel plate was the blue stone. It was surrounded by a ring of ghostly fire. Inside the flames, a vision appeared. A dark room, hidden faces, a voice chanting, "No one can possess this. He who is not the owner shall die." The fire died. The vision vanished. Doom was drenched in sweat, but his greed was rotting his brain. He snatched the stone back in an obsessive whisper. "I don't care what you are. You're mine now." 3 a.m. Doom lay in bed, eyes wide, lights blazing. He couldn't sleep. In the silence, a heavy knock came at the door. Knock, knock, knock. Who would be here at this hour? He walked to the door. "Who is it?" Silence. Another knock. A creak. He opened the door. The corridor was empty. But then he looked down. Wet footprints on the floor, moving, appearing out of thin air. They walked right past him into the room. In the center of the floor, the shadow began to form. The young man, eyes glowing a faint, angry red, the empty chain hanging from his neck. He held out a gray, lifeless hand.
in a hollow, booming voice. "Return what is mine." "No, it's mine!" Doom gripped the stone so hard his knuckles turned white. Suddenly, a localized windstorm tore through the room. Calendars ripped off the walls, glass shattered. The shadow's voice turned heavy, vibrating the very floorboards in a gravelly, demonic tone. "Then it begins." Sudden silence. The wind stopped. The shadow was gone. Doom lay collapsed on the floor, clutching the stone. And in the sudden, terrifying quiet, a final whisper echoed in his ear. 3 nights.
The night was finally over, but the nightmare was just beginning. Doom lay on the floor, the blue stone still crushed in his grip. As the weak morning light filtered through the grime of his window, he forced his eyes open. The room was a mess, but it felt too quiet. He sat up, his head throbbing with a dull, heavy ache. His palm was burning, stinging like it had been pressed against a hot iron. He opened his hand and gasped. A raw, circular sear was burned into his flesh, exactly the shape of the stone, and in the center, a tiny, cryptic symbol, an ancient language he didn't recognize. The whisper from the night before echoed in his skull. 3 nights. 10 a.m. Doom rushed to the morgue, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. The air inside was heavy, suffocating. He ran straight to the steel table. Empty. He sprinted to the freezers, tearing open the heavy drawers. Empty. Impossible. He was right here. "What are you looking for, Doom?" Doom spun around. Dr. Shamim was standing there, his eyes narrowed behind his spectacles. "The body, sir. The John Doe from last night." The doctor paused, his expression unreadable. Slowly, "What body?" "No John Doe came in last night." Doom's throat went bone dry. "No, sir. I performed the intake myself." The doctor slid a ledger across the table. "Look at the register, Doom." Doom's trembling fingers flipped the pages. Under last night's date, there was nothing, a blank, white space. Dr. Shamim's eyes dropped to Doom's hand. "Show me your hand." Doom tried to hide it, but the doctor grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. As he saw the mark, the color drained from the doctor's face. "Where did you get this?" "I saw this mark once, 10 years ago." "Where, sir?" "A secret case, a cult. They used blue stones to bind souls. They believed the stone was a vessel for the dead." Doom felt the stone in his pocket grow heavy, like a lead weight. "If you have it," the doctor hissed, "get rid of it, now." Doom lied, his voice hardening. "I don't have anything, sir." The doctor stared into Doom's soul. "Be very careful tonight." 11 p.m. Doom sat in total darkness. He wanted to see what was coming. As the clock struck midnight, the temperature plummeted. The white walls of his room began to darken, charring as if an invisible fire was spreading across the paint. Then he appeared, the young man, but he wasn't whole anymore. His chest was torn open, a gaping hole where his heart should be, and inside that hole, a swirling vortex of blue fire. He didn't weep this time. He roared. "You are running out of time." Doom screamed. "Why me? Who are you?" The shadow stepped forward. Behind him, more shadows began to manifest. 1, 2, 3, all identical, all with torn chests, all wearing the silver chain. They spoke in a terrifying unison. "We took it, and we did not survive. Now, it is your turn." The floor began to crack. Black, rotted hands clawed their way out of the floorboards, grabbing Doom's ankles, dragging him down. "Take it! Just take it!" Doom shrieked, trying to throw the stone. But it wouldn't leave his hand. It was fused to his skin like a parasite. The shadows hissed. "Final night, tomorrow." Just before dawn, Doom fell into a fever dream. He was in a ruined temple, a circle of fire, people pouring blood on the blue stone. A voice boomed from the flames. "He who takes the stone pays the debt with his life." Suddenly, in the fire, Doom saw his own face. The voice changed. "You have taken it before." Doom screamed, woke up, looked at the floor. Thick, dark blood was seeping in from under his front door. It was spreading, turning the entire floor into a crimson lake. And from the other side of the wood, a voice whispered, "Tonight is the end." Doom didn't die. Before dawn, his body had gone cold, his heart stuttering to a near halt. But it never fully stopped. On the way to the hospital, he suddenly snapped his eyes open. They weren't brown anymore. They were a solid electric blue. A few days later, he returned home. He was a shadow of himself, silent, distant. He didn't speak to anyone. He just sat in the dark, staring at the walls, whispering to the empty air. His wife, Rahima, felt the chill in her bones. Something had replaced her husband. One night, she found the courage to ask, "Who are you talking to?" Doom turned his head with a slow, mechanical creak. A twisted, jagged smile stretched across his face. "They are here." "Who?" He didn't answer. He just kept smiling. It began that very night. Every door in the house slammed shut at once. The window glass vibrated until it screamed. There was no wind, yet the curtains lashed out like whips. Rahima pulled her young son close as the shadows began to pool in the corners. Not just one, but dozens. They looked human, but their heads were tilted at impossible, bone-snapping angles. They crawled up the walls. They hung from the ceiling. 1,000 voices whispered in a unified, dry hiss. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Doom stood in the center of the room, his body convulsing. Suddenly, he began to claw at his own head. "Shut up! Shut up!" But the voice that came out wasn't his. It was two voices, one human, one demonic, tearing through his throat at the same time. Rahima watched in horror as Doom's shadow detached itself from the floor. It stood up on its own, a towering void with eyes made of blue fire. Doom fell to his knees. "No, leave my family alone." The shadow laughed, a soundless, vibrating laugh. Suddenly, Doom stood up and began to walk toward his own son. His eyes were empty pits. "Doom, what are you doing?" Rahima shrieked. Doom's hand was shaking. He was fighting his own muscles. "Give us the boy's soul. Pay the debt." The shadows leaned in toward the child. At the last second, Doom bit his own hand until the blood sprayed. He began to beat his own chest, screaming at the ceiling, "Take me, not them!" The great shadow lunged, disappearing entirely into Doom's body. His frame jerked as if hit by lightning. His eyes flared with blue fire. He grabbed his own throat, his nails digging into the skin, scratching against the bone with a sickening, grating sound. Scratching metal. Black smoke began to pour from his mouth. Within the smoke, 1,000 screaming faces swirled. Doom looked at his wife and child one last time. For a moment, a faint human tear tracked through the grime on his face. He whispered, "Open the door. Run." Rahima grabbed the boy and bolted. Behind her, a sound like a vacuum collapsing. No fire, no blood, just an infinite, terrifying silence. The neighbors rushed in. The doors were wide open. The room was untouched. But Doom was gone, erased from existence. On the floor lay the silver chain. The blue stone sat in the center, dull and gray like common glass. Rahima reached out to touch the metal, weeping. Just as her fingers grazed the metal, a faint, ghostly light flickered deep inside the stone. And from a vast, impossible distance, she heard Doom's voice. "They are still here." Months later, a new city, a new victim. A John Doe is found on a desolate road, age 24. Around his neck,
a silver chain with a blue stone. He is taken to the morgue, laid on the steel table. A new assistant picks up the chain and smiles. This looks expensive. The air in the morgue turns ice cold. From the shadows, 1,000 voices whisper in unison. The debt begins again.